What's happening, Shredder Nation? Happy Wednesday. Welcome to a very special edition of Living the Shredder Life, episode number 112. Gosh, Susan, I can't believe it's 112 already. I'm your host, Coach Jesse. I'm joined with my very dear good friend. You all know her as Nurse Susan. She's a holistic nurse. She's a professional herbalist. Susan and I have just built this amazing relationship over the last 2.5 years, really through ER Shred, through finding our really pure centered love around helping other people, not just telling people, but giving them tracks to run on, helping them explore, going through their journey. I had many years under my belt of coaching people. Susan has many years under her belt in the clinical session, from doctor's offices to hospitals to patients. And I think the blend of, what we can bring on this very special episode that we're going to share with you guys tonight is just going to be pure magical. And I hope it really serves you guys, because that's really what our mission is, right, Susan? So welcome. I don't know how many times you've been on here, but welcome back to Living the Shredder Life. You're always welcome here.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. This, of course, is a hot topic of mine. I'm very excited to do this with you.
Yeah,
I think that, in this conversation can be the seeds that could change many people's lives for the better.
100%. And that is a great, powerful statement to share with people what the hell it is we're going to talk about. So tonight, we're going to share with you guys this, usually we do interviews. This is going to be more of a educational, life sharing type of thing. And we want to share with you guys what Susan and I both believe is hands down. Susan, you called it the Holy Grail. I think it's one of the most important things that we could absolutely focus on if being healthy for the long term is what our goal is. This particular topic is hands down the one thing that you really should focus a lot of time and energy into understanding, trying to balance. And we're going to talk tonight about insulin and blood sugars, right, Susan? So let's do this. Let's just ask people to drop into the comments as they come in, if they're listening. How many of you have issues with your blood sugar, issues with your insulin, or someone who has?
High or low?
Or someone who has, high or low. And I'm willing to bet, and I know you can probably, vouch for this, Susan, just based off your years of being out there in the field. I'd be willing to bet that the numbers are really high for what's the stat? 93.7% of Americans are in some way, shape, or form metabolically unhealthy. And insulin plays a big role. So if you don't mind, Susan, because you're, obviously your background, can you just explain to people really quick, like what is insulin, kind of why it's important, and what your take on insulin is, if it's okay to start there?
Well, sure. Well, the bottom line is insulin takes glucose into the cells of our muscles, our liver, and our fat cells. If you're insulin resistant, you'll suffer from hyperinsulinemia. And insulin is one of the most inflammatory hormones on the planet when out of balance. So when we think about energy storage and in our body and where we want that energy to go, do you want it to go to fuel you for performance, for cellular energy, or do you want it to store fat? Because those are your choices. Right. That's the very simplistic. If you want to give a little bit more detail on the science of that, but to me, I like to keep it really bottom line.
Yeah, I know. I think that's a great thing. We don't really want to complicate it for people, but insulin is just one of the most powerful hormones in the human body. Straight up and forward. Like it's produced by your pancreas. And, in the state that we're in right now, with how the average person, the average American, and, really whatever other country has adopted the Western way of eating, we've seen this now in the trends and the data. really at the bare base of all these other things, right, Susan? Like all, I forgot how many there are, but there's, diseases are labeled as a disease based off the symptoms that you're presenting at that time, right? And I think that's really important for people to understand, is because we go to the doctor, we say, hey, I have ABC, and they say, okay, you have this, right? And what Susan and I have come to learn through years of research and study, and Susan's looking at blood work and labs and tracking people and looking at food, at the base of this, Susan, really insulin's like the mother of it all, right? Like if you're in control of that, if you're not insulin resistant, and instead you can utilize insulin the way that it was intended to be used by what you said, taking nutrients and vitamins that we eat and that our body absorbs. And then where is that going? And insulin's kind of like the doorman, right? I always like to explain to people, it's like the doorman, it's like the key, right?
It's the key.
So insulin can take it and turn open that locked door. And then those nutrients can store into the belly of the muscle, which then, we can get into, it fuels the mitochondria, and mitochondria are the powerhouses of ATP, which is energy in the body. And by being insulin resistant and getting yourself to a level, a lot of people, when you get up into like diabetics and type 2 and whatever, you can't regulate insulin. You can't utilize that, right? So it's just a mess. So
and it's a vicious cycle. So is diabetes a symptom or a disease, which is a very different way of thinking about it? And is it a disease of glucose metabolism or hyperinsulinemia? Because think about it. They say one of the biggest things with diabetics is to lose weight. It's hard for them to lose weight. And then when they start losing weight, then if a diabetic, the reason they have such a struggle is they're insulin resistant. So there's too much insulin in the bloodstream. And then they have to go on insulin.
Right.
Well, it's like this vicious, very vicious cycle. And so when you think about it as a set of symptoms, then it's actually empowering, because then you can make choices. And that's what people don't get. For me, my history was skipping meals, but I was manipulating my blood sugar then as well. And that continued. Well, it backfired on me because I was going low blood sugar.
Yep. Yeah, and that's just as bad, right? Like I think sometimes we're like, oh, if I skip a meal or if I don't do this or whatever, a lot of times because of media, because of all the information, because of different people in different areas and tunes and whatever they're promoting, depending upon who you're following, it's very easy to kind of get drawn into things. But when you realize stuff like, it's really about the balance, right? I mean, I think that's the main message. Like that, it's all about balance. It's not an extreme. It's not an extreme forever. However, it's not an extreme forever. However, look at that, I'm rhyming today. However, there's a time and a place for extremes when it's controlled. And we can, we'll talk about that later on how we can use an extreme as a benefit, but it's also just as important to make sure that we know when to pull back, we know when to pull the reins back, so we can then create that natural homeostasis state, like that balanced state that really is what health is all about. I mean, it's really about the balance, and what you and I have, we got what? 60 plus years together between us in this thing.
And what
I know with my life, you've been on this journey and you've got with your life, and then we see it with a lot of people. It's really that. So that's awesome. So,
you froze, Jess. Something happened.
Oh. Susan.
I'm here. Here you
okay,
are.
You back?
Okay, yeah, we're back.
You cut out for a second. Okay. Okay. Yeah, you cut out for a second on me. That's no worries. Okay, cool. Okay. So, okay, cool. Anything else you got? Like, I think we want to keep it simple. But people just need to realize, like, insulin just plays such an important role. It plays a role in protein synthesis, plays a role in fat metabolism. And, you know, when you're losing control of this, and this can be done, what, Susan? It can be done through skipping meals. It can also be done with excessive blood sugar spikes, right? With all the hyper palatable foods that we have today, the chips, the sugars, the grains. Yeah.
Seed oils are a big one. The linoleic acid is a big contributor. Obesity, of course. You know, stress. The life we live. And, you know, you just laid out what you just said prior to this. You just laid out the complete definition of a holistic model. So if blood sugar, which is the Mac Daddy of balance in your body, right? Everything kind of springs off of that. It impacts the microbiome, your brain. You know, type 3 diabetes they're looking at dementia. I mean, it goes on and on and on. So when we talk about a holistic model, you know, and the thing about this is there's no magic pill. There's no magic pill. It requires personal responsibility to turn this around. But once you get that piece, and this is what I always say in the community, Jess, is at the end of the road here is freedom. Because you just said it. When we get to a place of being metabolically flexible, our choices open up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that there's no magic pill, but I just want to share with people, you know, there is a place for all of this. I think, you know, Susan and I are not anti anything. I really want to make that statement. Like, it's really, really important. I know some people cast a judgment based off like, oh, you know, it's like ER shred. You group it as like, oh, you're low carb. I'm like, no, we're not. You know, there's a time and a place for everything. Like, do your due diligence, right? So we're not anti anything. There is a time and a place for things like metformin and, you know, other stuff, depending upon where a person's at. But I think it's also important that we stop relinquishing all of our power to thinking that a shot or a pill is the magic cure. That's where I have a problem. That's where I have a problem with doctors that don't say, you know, okay, I can do this and we can go on this journey together, but what's our goal for an end date? What are you willing to do? How are you going to change the foods that you eat? What are you going to do for exercise? Because exercise, diet, mental, dealing with mental stressors, right? Whether that's yoga or meditation or cold plunging or sauna, I don't care. But like dealing with something that all helps in playing that role. So I love that you brought that up. I think it's a really important piece that people need to know. Like, at the end of the day, you have to take radical responsibility, right? And you got to take it.
I'm not demonizing. And why I reached out to you to do this, right, is because of these new drugs on the market. Mounjaro, semaglutide, Ozempic, the injections. Am I still with you? You froze.
Yeah, you're with me. Go ahead. I'm moving because I'm just coming closer to my internet source.
Okay, so this is what spurred me on. I'm very, very passionate about this because this new body of drugs, it's amazing for fatty liver and insulin resistance, for people who are in a really precarious place with their health. The problem is when I have a discussion with a medical professional and they say to me is, no, they stay on it forever. So they can actually impact on these dynamics, reverse them, and then stay on these drugs. And that is the mindset that it just gets me crazy. And I believe that the further we get away from taking responsibility of our health, the more in trouble that we're going to be in down the road. And that's what we're seeing in our community here is people, it's almost like I want to say we've been tricked into it, right? We fell into this protocol that just opened up everything to get us to a place where actually we're just at the beginning of what's possible for our health. We reach this place of homeostasis and balance. And that's the coolest part of this journey is what's next. whether it's your own food blueprint, whether it's freedom, whether it's flexibility, whatever it might be, you're at this place of like newness. And then you get to start again and to choose from a place of empowerment.
I love it. I love it. Guys, do me a favor as you're watching. If anything pops out, if anything resonates, if anything clicks with you, if you got anything to add, drop it into the comments for sure. Obviously, the more people that interact, the more stuff that's going on, the better. Susan, let's go into, can we maybe discuss like how insulin regulates blood sugar? Because I think some people, maybe we still got them confused. Like we're talking about obviously the importance, all of that, but like, how does it regulate blood sugar? What's the role that it plays in actually preventing chronic diseases like diabetes, like heart disease, like obesity? Like why is it the Mac Daddy?
Well, I always like to let you do the sciencey stuff, but the bottom line is, and you said it earlier, insulin is the key. So the way I've always described this to clients is insulin resistance, syndrome X, metabolic syndrome. This is something you earn. You earn it with your knife and fork. It doesn't come out of the air. So we're talking about this dynamic, inflammatory, blood sugar control. And of course, there are some people that this does not apply, that their pancreas has stopped putting out insulin, and type 1 diabetes. That's not what we're talking about today. But basically, glucose is your energy nutrient in the body. So when you eat, depending on what you eat, your blood sugar rises and insulin is released to metabolize that for you, whatever your body doesn't use for energy, to get and fuel the ATP cycle, the energy center of your cell. When you become insulin resistant, so if you, like I said, you earn this. So now when you're insulin resistant, it's the energy I like to describe this as is your body no longer trusts you. So your cells have now become inflexible. We call it metabolic inflexibility, right? So your cells have now become inflexible. Insulin is knocking at the door and your cells are like, you're not getting in there. Yeah. Right. So, and this is where the problem springs off of. So then we have hyperinsulinemia. Your body has to deal with that because insulin unchecked, remember I said, you're either going to fuel energy in the body for everything that this beautiful machine has to do, or you're going to store fat. So I don't know. To me, it's an easy choice. Like, don't not store fat. I don't think so. But and then so this is what we're seeing over and over again. And of course, it's an inflammatory syndrome, right? We know that because we know insulin unchecked is inflammatory. What fuels that? So we stress, high cortisol levels, inflammation is the number one. We can do something about that. Yeah, we absolutely. And then, of course, hyperinsulinemia and excess consumption of refined carbohydrates and seed oils. Yeah, the body doesn't know what to do with these things.
I love that you stressed inflammation. And I think, if I was to clear one thing up for people, somebody says inflammation is the root cause. I'm like, well, inflammation is a symptom, right? Inflammation is a symptom. And I know I've gotten trapped into that before, but when I do more research, like inflammation is a byproduct of something that's going on. Really, it's what we're talking about tonight. That's really the main driver of, I would even go to say like ultimately every disease. It starts here, right? Like when, what we're talking about, when your cells aren't functioning right and you're not loading energy. Remember, food is energy. Calories are simply energy, and I think we get this so confused because of all the stuff out there, and it's so easy. It's like, what camp are you on? Are you playing this? Are you not? I'm like, no, I'm on the balance side. Right? Like I'm called human. Like, God, I'm so tired of all this. But when your body starts to not function the way that it was designed to function, you got to remember that every cell has a job. And certain cells' job is to provide to the next cell, right? And then those all working together, operate systems. And one system works in another system and feeds another system. And when you just look at it like that and keep it that simple, That's simple. Yeah, you can get I mean, gosh, every system, you can create a profession on a system, right? But like when we've done that in the medicine world, but do we need all that? Because is it really all together? I think it's all together in some way, right? So if we look at the main driver of what causes all the stuff, this is really what we're talking about. It's insulin. It's not managing your blood sugar levels. It's your cells not speaking. It's not directing energy to where the energy is needed. And instead it's storing. And yeah, fat is energy, but it's like, it can be used for survival if you live back in the caveman days. But now we have so much excessive fat and we're not utilizing it. And people don't realize fat is sluggish. Fat is anabolic. Fat is just dangerous. And we're talking about visceral fat, right? Like we're talking about the inner fat, the yellow fat, the organ fat, the stuff that, starts to clog up your liver and create non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So now your liver, can't even detoxify you the right way. It can't do its job. Instead, it's spilling over into your body. And that's where we start, you let that go long enough. And then we get to a point where we see a lot of people today where it's like, oh, I got high blood pressure. Oh, I got type 2 diabetes. Oh, I'm pre-diabetic. Oh, I got, high
That's what people say. I got to my 40s and then I started to fall apart. And I love the way you define that, because it's like, if you think of your body as this assembly line, like this manufacturing plant, right? And it's almost like when you're insulin resistant, there's like a gate. And everything is being backed up in that gate. It can't get out, and that it clogs everything up over time. Absolutely. For sure. And it's like a domino effect from there. But 100%. The main is inflammation. So what we're saying here, so is diabetes a disease or a symptom? And I don't know. It's pretty much, I've got some great stories about things I've witnessed with diabetes, but I'm gonna.
Well, what's one story? Actually, I think that's amazing. I think that can bring a lot of value. So since you brought that up, what's one story that you can recall from your clinical practice, where you can share to kind of bring light for somebody, if you don't mind?
I have a lot of people that they would say I didn't do it. I gave people information, and they made serious reversals in their health over the years. And we've had people do that in our community with their hemoglobin A1C. But one of the, as I was in my journey with, I have a real big passion about this. I used to lecture about it. I used to call it like comics. I would do these 2-hour talks. I was just like, this is the thing. And it really is a passion piece for me. So when I believe when you're on purpose, the universe gives you opportunities to validate that. So my own mother was a type 2 diabetic. She was what they called a brittle diabetic. And she was on insulin, long acting at night, short acting in the morning, and was using insulin 4 times a day. She also had COPD. My mother was, when she was compliant, she balanced out, needed less insulin, but she never stuck with anything. She also had emphysema. So she would have to go in the hospital like once a year when the weather changed for her breathing. And then, of course, they would give her steroids, which impact on blood sugar, IV steroids and antibiotics. So her sugars would go 500, 400. I mean, really, really, really high. And they were covering her with insulin. And of course, in the hospital, they were feeding her hospital food. And I would get on them about this. Actually, at one point, I did have a hospital. Because they were scared of me. I used to work at this one, and I actually got the kitchen at that time to do the blood type diet. My mother was, which is ancestral, right? It's what we're no dairy, no grains. So, and she would do better. But this one time, finally, I said to them, when she was stabilized, I said, I am taking her home. I want her discharged. My mother's aide came to my house with 2 bags. I'm serious, of medications. Okay. insulin up the wazoo because her blood sugar was so unstable. We would check that in the house, all of this, right? Jesse, I'm serious. I took all the medication away. I kept, of course, her blood sugar. But what I did was I got her on her blood type diet. I fed her every 2 to 3 hours. I used cod liver oil for extra fat. So if her blood sugar spiked, she was still on oral steroids. If her blood sugar spiked, I gave her a tablespoon of cod liver oil. She let me do all this. Within 24 hours, I had her blood sugars regulated to where she needed insulin in the morning and evening only. And that was, she just got out of like a 5-day hospital stay where they couldn't get her blood sugar under 300.
Yeah.
That is the power of food and cod liver oil. So this was one of my absolute, because I was able to do that in the face of steroids. So what does that tell you? That as soon as I started addressing the inflammation, which, listen, that's only stress management and diet. There is the inflammation. The only thing that works on inflammation is steroids. And over time, that's going to bite you in the butt. So, I mean, and I did this with her time and time again, and would take her to her doctor for a follow-up visit a week later, give him the 2 bags of medication. And they saw what I did, but it was like they had blinders on.
You were a quack.
I was
you were quack because you went against all the standard medical training, and it's crazy. It's like that was back then. Thankfully, and it's not even close to where it should be, but thankfully, there's at least more of a movement today with. Especially with the world of podcasting and all of these Western trained doctors who have experienced medical issues themselves and then who have went on their own self-explanatory journey. And then they've come to the realization. Guys, there's so much amazing quality information that you can also wrap your brains every day with the world of podcasting today, because you don't have to play the paper game. You don't have to play the political game. Like, you got this platform and you can do it. So I would encourage you guys that if you're struggling, make sure you're getting yourself a credible source, and finding that information. I think that's a great story. And I think it kind of leads in, like, let's talk about the various factors that can impact insulin resistance, like diet, like exercise, like stress, like genetics, right? And if people just remember, insulin resistance it's a condition, right? Remember, where cells become less responsive to insulin, right? And that leads to high blood sugar, right? And it's that constant thing. So diet, like Susan just shared with that amazing story, we're not talking about a long period of time for somebody to really see the profound effect that making some simple switches, right? And I think this is why we see so many amazing come alive stories, if you will, with people that start within 11 days, right? And, there's more to the people that have been around for a year and 2 years and so on and so forth. But in the beginning, when you make this radical shift in carbohydrate,
I'm losing you.
Sugars, all. Because they're
I lost you, Jesse.
Okay, am I still here? Am I here?
Now I hear you. Yeah, now you're
okay.
back.
Okay, so just remember that insulin, plays that significant role in a diet high in carbohydrate, refined grain, added sugars, basically the standard today. If you're not paying attention, right, even the quote unquote healthy things, we've come to learn that they're not the best for us. So that's going to play a big role, right? A lack of physical activity. Look, I'm not saying you have to go to the gym. I've never told somebody that they have to go to the gym. In fact, I think you can get away with a pair of dumbbells in your garage or in your house, and that's literally enough. That is enough to stimulate the body. That is enough to stimulate the body. And then as you continue on, if you want to go further and take it further and push your body and get to different things, like, yes, like you can utilize those other things. But I'm talking about, like, you know, depending upon where you're at, diet's a huge thing. You got to move your body. Like, this plays a huge the puzzle. You know, diet, exercise, I need people to remember it's actually a stress. So we're talking about decreasing stress, and we're like, well, wait a minute, exercise is a stressor. It's a hormonic stressor, right? Which means that it's actually beneficial to the body because certain types of stress can actually help regulate things. So we can increase the stress. And if that means that you haven't walked in a while, if you've been couch bound, if you've stuck because of something, that could using some bands and just sitting in a chair and moving on. That can, you know, story last week, Susan, where somebody lost 190 pounds, and all it was walk and diet, right? Walk and diet.
Yes.
So that's the power of this. You know what I mean? To know.
And that's the piece I like. It's the stamina piece. Just start, keep going.
Yeah.
You know, I can't help as we're talking about this part of it, you know, and I wonder if you want to take this up and out and talk about higher consciousness a little bit, you know, is this yet another opportunity pointing us as a society is that we've gone a little bit too far and we need to get back to our roots, literally and figuratively. And it makes me think of Sean, you know, and his preaching about get in nature, get away from the blue lights, you know, get your phone away from you at night. Watch the time you're spending on a screen. You know, just not that we have to stop everything, but just to be more balanced in our lives and to find, you know, for a lot of people, when they don't have any of that, there's no peace. You know, there's a part of them that knows that something is just not right. And, you know, when I think about what happened to my mother's health and actually my whole family, you know, and then you think about, well, I just want it, like whatever it is, like people with, you know, not making great choices consistently. You know, if you saw the outcome, you know, you may take a second thought. And that's what I hope to communicate here, that, you know, a lot of times these things are completely preventable. And, you know, it's just, I guess I don't know. It's just always been my passion for people to be well. And I know for all of us, and we've said this in this community, there's people around us that we care about, or even a stranger, and you could see them on fire. And you know that you can put that fire out, and it's something so simple. It's so frustrating sometimes.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important you focused on other things. Again, this, you know, we're trying to keep it really simple, guys. You know, I mean, listen, we can do a whole thing on exercise. We can do a whole thing on stress management and the different tools. And this is where it's going to take some, you know, this is where you're going to have to suck it up. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to have to do some due diligence. You're going to have to find podcasts. You're going to have to dig into the group. You're going to have to connect with the right people, because you know, you have to identify, you know, what's going to move the needle the fastest. And we know that it's a combination of everything, but we also know that if you try to take on too much at one time, it's not going to be a good thing, right? So while we're sharing all these things with you, realize that this is the bigger scope. This is the bigger picture. We're trying to just bring awareness to all of this so you can bring it to the front of your thinking and start to look at this, you know, and realize, like what Susan was just talking about, you know, with being more natural and getting rid of blue light. Like, stress can absolutely affect your insulin resistance, 100%. And you stressed by social media. You could be stressed out by reading other people's comments. You could be stressed out if somebody didn't agree with you, right? Like, there's so many of these things. What are you going to say? Go ahead. I don't want you to.
I was going to say, you know, but the thing about it is, when you're nutritionally sound, the things that stress you get better. You're able to equip, and it's so simple. It's like, Put some kind of fuel in your body. If you're dealing with blood sugar issues, put some fuel in your body every few hours. Focus on protein, focus on healthy fats, move your body, stay hydrated, and do what you need to do to start improving good quality sleep. I mean, how, and the payoff is, and it's free, and the payoff is far reaching. And that's what we're seeing in people. And look, it's not just ER shred. You know, I work with clients, they adopt the Mediterranean diet or whatever it is they're doing, but it usually has something to do with getting rid of sugar and becoming a more natural lifestyle. And then everything springs off of that. Because you feel better. And I've always said nutrition animates you. It will lift you up, and it will take you where you need to go. You know, think about it. Your cells start talking to each other again. Your brain's up there, you know, in the mix there too, right? And then I just want to say the one thing that I was telling you before we started about, you know, the medical dictionary, Taber's, which is what I used when I was in nursing school, and what medical students use, and you can look up symptoms and it gives you the diagnosis and prognosis. And when I used to talk about this, I used to draw it on a board. So diagnosis plus prognosis. But in the middle of those two things is you. So that is everything. You know, and that goes with any disease. Any disease, whether it's curable or not curable. We're talking about something that's hopefully curable. But even if it's not, if you're metabolically sound, you're going to do better. No matter what it is.
Yeah, for sure. You're gonna fight off things better, right? We always say, like, you know, the healthier you are, the stronger you are. And, you know, it's for everyday life, you know, like we're talking about fighting off things of everyday life, because inevitably, like, shit happens, right? Like if you got kids, life is stressful. It's unpredictable. You never know what's next. Like you can be more physically sound for that. You know, something happens at work. You have a crisis come up. You have an emergency. Like that can be, you know, you have a, you know, pandemic hit. You can be more foundationally sound to, again, not prevent anything, but be more foundationally sound to set yourself up for better success. It's just amazing, right? Like just remember that a healthy lifestyle, a balanced diet, regular exercise, stress management, genetic screening, you know, these are all things that can really help prevent and manage, you know, insulin resistance. So there's a lot of things in there, right? I have done a topic. I don't know if you want to dive into this, but, you know, to explain to people how balancing blood sugar levels can help improve energy, mood, overall health. I know we've kind of like, you know, put the pieces in there everywhere, but go ahead. What comes to mind?
Oh, we've said it, you know, so if insulin is the factor in energy utilization, right? So you're either using it efficiently or you're storing it. So to me, I mean, you can elaborate on that, but
yeah, I'm just going to go. If you see me looking down, like I wrote notes because I didn't want to forget anything. I just want people to understand the vast, you know, the vast array of this. I mean, it's a lot of information, right? So we want to make sure that we're giving you guys the best. But I mean, you're talking about balancing blood sugar levels that are helping regulate energy throughout the entire day, right? I mean, that's as simple as making the right choice in the morning. If you make a choice of high quality protein in the morning versus refined grains, flour, and sugar, you're going to regulate your energy differently throughout the entire day. You're also going to regulate your choices differently. So if you start your day with something like protein, your blood sugars are going to be balanced throughout the entire day. It's been proven, right? Whereas if you choose the opposite, you're literally setting yourself up for failure. You're like, oh, I'm walking out the door to fail today because your blood sugar is going to spike. It's going to come back down. And this is why I always refer this to almost like, you know, it's almost like a drug addict, right? Like people get addicted to drugs because not the drug, they get addicted to the high and the feeling. And when they crash back down and it's that bottom level, right, that you feel you need, then you need that next hit. And that food is a drug. Food is a drug. And when you do that and you spike up and spike down, you need your next hit. And that next hit is usually a candy bar, a bag of Doritos, a bag of cheesy poofs, right?
Yes,
Some
yes.
honey roasted almond, like, you
What-
fool yourself. And it's like you
what-
create this vicious cycle.
What about the line at Starbucks at 3,
Oh
4
my
in the
God.
afternoon?
It's
It
crazy.
is ridiculous.
It's so, you brought this up, but once a month I travel back. I have a long weekend with my daughter who lives up north. And on Friday, when I drop her off at school, I go to a Starbucks to work. And, here I bring in my backpack. I got my beef stick. I got my cheese. I got my shake. I got, I do get a coffee. I put butter in it. They already know me by now because I go to the same one. But, as much as it blows my mind to watch the, tall chocolate swirly frappuccino.
Yeah.
I don't even know what they're called, but you know what I mean, right? And then, I'm like, that's got 80 plus grams of sugar.
I would be in a
And on top of that, they're getting like whatever that shit is in the case, that they portray to be as food, those sandwiches and stuff like that. And I'm like, what in the world? Like you're doing this because you're hungry and you're supposed to fuel and you need energy. But yet what you're not realizing is you are zapping all of your energy for the rest of the day. You're screwing up your mental focus. You're screwing up your blood sugars. You're screwing up the way that you're going to show up, the way that you're going to be able to think. Like everything is going to be this roller coaster. And we do all of that, right? So maintaining, really, again, it goes back to maintaining blood sugar levels, but that can increase your mood, Susan, if you maintain blood sugar levels. People don't realize your mood is like, if you're being super bitchy, check your blood sugar levels. If you're being an asshole, check your blood sugar levels. Like
absolutely.
What have you done the night before or even the morning of to make you like that you're so on edge that you can't control those feelings? That's something to ask yourself and get a little bit deeper with, right? Chronic high blood sugar levels can lead to insulin resistance, which obviously can create type 2 diabetes, heart disease, other health problems we talked about. Eating a balanced diet includes healthy, complex carbohydrates if they fit your blueprint. Like I'm talking like sweet potatoes. That's one of my go-tos. Like that's what I'm talking about when I say that. Maybe some vegetables, right? Healthy fats, obviously high quality protein, non-negotiable, especially if you're in our arena. That's all going to help regulate your blood sugar levels. So, choosing and making the right choices. Again, if you notice, it all keeps coming back to this. It all keeps coming back to this, right? We can share all the stats and all the things it does, but it still keeps coming back to you taking control, right? And realizing when I say like no one's coming to save you, this is what I mean. Not like no one's here to help. Like you have plenty of help. That's not what that means. No one's here to save you because you are the only one that can babysit yourself throughout the day. You are the only one that's going to say, hey, I'm sneaking off in the corner and I'm eating this bullshit, or I'm going to create some resilience and I'm going to deny that from myself, right? Because I know it's better for me. Regular exercise, we talked about stress management, meditation, deep breathing, yoga, proper sleep hygiene. You touched on that, Susan. Yeah. It's crucial. So crucial. And this doesn't mean 8 hours. Actually, there's studies that show even some people from 6 to 9 is the sweet spot, depending upon the person. So I'm a person that gets like 6.5 hours of sleep. I thrive on that. Could I be better? I think I could be, but I have an 18-month-old. Like, give me a break. Like, this is a season of my life, right? So I'm really, managing that. What about some... let's do this. Do you have anything else that you want to share before we get into like different like tips and tricks, and then we can kind of leave people with that?
Well, I think we gave the tips and tricks, right? And,
yeah, for sure.
And so the stress management piece is inclusive because I think you're going to have difficulty managing your ability to deal with the things in your life if you're not nutritionally sound. So other than that, you spoke to all of it, but I did want to spend just a moment to people who are in this, that maybe have a new diagnosis of type 2 diabetes, have been told they're pre-diabetic. And I want to speak to that community for a minute. So for us that are still on the fence with that, it's pretty easy to recognize high blood pressure, belly fat, cravings for sugar, feeling hungry. Sometimes it's skin tags when your blood sugar, and those are things telling you it's time to make a change.
Yep.
But if you've already been told by a health professional that you're walking this road, I just wanted to lay out that for many, many people, not all, like I said, many, it is reversible and you can walk yourself out of it. And that journey encompasses everything we've said for you today, but it also requires stamina. And I want to recognize that, and I want to speak to it for a minute. And what I mean by that is, if insulin resistance and prediabetes is something that you've earned, we have to take ownership of that. That's, I got myself here. And then once you recognize that and make a commitment, like the gentleman you were speaking about that lost all that weight and just started walking, it's that type of journey. And the problem is that if we think about the dynamic I said where your cells don't trust you. So let's say you have 2.5 weeks and you're perfect, and then you have a jelly donut and a Coke. Well, that lockdown is going to go boom right again. So anything
you start over again.
See, I hate to say you start over.
No, you do. You do.
Set yourself back. And so that's all I want to say is this is one of the things that it's like, okay, I'm going to do this. And you go and you stay at it for anywhere from 60 to 90 days. And then things start opening back up again. So,
for sure.
Yeah. And we
can take the example of John. We can take my guest the week before on my show, Ed Gonzalez.
We have a lot
he's lost almost 200 pounds.
Yeah.
He's literally less than 10 pounds away in the last 3.5 years.
Right.
3.5 years, right?
Well, I think
hasn't been. Go ahead.
I was just saying, I think it's helpful because sometimes people with the diagnosis like this, pre-diabetes, it can be overwhelming. And just to hear that, you know what, you've got power here. I'm sorry.
So much power. No, I think this is a great way that we can leave this, because I hope that what you got out of this is you understand the importance. You understand this is crucial. You understand it is something not to joke about. It's not a joke. This can lead to serious health consequences. But there is so much hope for you. There is so much hope for you. And I hope that that's what you got out of this. I hope that that's what you learned through the stories and the facts and all of that is it doesn't really take a lot to make a big change. We're talking like simple choices. We're talking like a couple flip-flops, right? And I think what you brought up is that be in this for the long game. Like this isn't an 11-day thing. That's just a jump start. This isn't a 30-day thing. That's a good base, right? This is how can I implement this to make these choices second nature, right? Like that's how my life is now. I know that's how your life is now. Like I don't even have to think about this. Like it's almost hard to think back to what it was because it's been so long for me. Yeah. And that's what I want to leave you guys with is that's what the road ahead looks like for you. Yeah, you don't have to be a slave to food, right? Like you don't have to be a slave to stuff. Like you can walk by those things eventually and not be tempted, but also realize I'm still tempted. Like I still go, like I went out to breakfast this morning and in the case, there's the coffee cake and this big, giant, delicious looking mouth watering morsel of a cookie that like tempted me. And I like came this close and I was like, nope, I don't need it. Right. And that's powerful. And I learned that through the journey of the last 20 years. I trained myself because I wasn't always like that. I wasn't always like that. I didn't always make the right choices. So I hope that's what people got out of this, Susan, is the hope that's there, the seriousness, but the hope. And I know it's a passion of both of ours because we just know how powerful it is. And we know that the other side of this is what people deserve. I really believe it's what people deserve to live that balance. Again, that doesn't mean life is easy. Nothing fixes that shit, right? We're talking about just being foundationally set to be able to do what you want in life. Go after the goals, handle the extra stress, be with the family, still conquer your dreams, all of it, right? And that's what I think. That's why I think everybody deserves ER Shred. Can we just talk about that? Like this protocol, right? That's there. And this is what everything we've talked about with you guys. This is what we've seen. Not with one, not with two, not with five, not with 10. I'm talking literally thousands of people at this point over the last 2.5 years. We have seen this. Everything we just shared with you. We have literally watched it with our own 2 eyes. For those people that take responsibility, right, Susan?
Yes.
For those people that show up, for the people that come to the community, that use the guides, that watch the documentaries, that read the books that we suggest, that educate themselves, that learn to make decisions, that give themselves grace, that don't punish themselves. Again, it's not perfection around here. Right. It's just the constant daily thing. And that's where the community comes into play. Everything that we've discussed, you can get here. So if anybody's feeling lost at all, know that www.ershredders.com should be your first stop. It's a free community. And then from there, become educated. And once you're educated, then you can make a decision. Do you go the route that we're teaching? Do you take some of it and do it in a different way? Because this isn't a one-shot thing. There's other ways to manage. I think that what we have is one of the easiest, most foundational, most sustainable ways that I've seen it promoted out there. But there's other ways too that people can do it, but at least make that stop and educate yourself. And I'm begging you to please do that, because it's really such a crucial piece of the puzzle. Anything else that you want to share?
I agree. And what I love about us on the board is we all do it a little bit different.
100%.
We all do it a little bit different. For me, when I finally got to the place of freedom, and I want that for everybody. I believe it's all inclusive. You feel better, the world gets better. It's like this. The whole thing springs out, and I'm grateful beyond measure to witness it. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right, Susan, I appreciate you. Guys, we appreciate you. We love you. Make sure you smash the share button. This is a really, really important topic. Tag anybody that you care about, that if you're struggling, get this in front of them, not because it has all the answers, but because it has enough to just get the mind thinking, to get the mind, bring it to the forefront, understand what, the possibilities, understand why it's important, understand that there's a way out. So Susan, I appreciate you. I know everybody here appreciates you. Guys, let us know, drop into the comments. Let us know what you got out of this. What are the key takeaways? Is there anything else any other topics that you want me and Susan to maybe put on our radar that we can come back on and kind of dive into? Because I love this. This is literally talks that Susan and I have pretty much on a weekly basis. And I was like, Susan, we just need to get on and just have our talk and let people learn, because a lot of the stuff that we always talk about and share, I'm like, man, that is so good. And then I forget it. I forget to bring it up in a video or something like that. And I'm like, okay, we got to stop doing this. We're both busy. So let's just set our time, put it out there live for people. And I hope people gain from it. Right. And they can kind of get a backseat to our conversations and talks and chats, and we have all kinds of stuff. So it's an open book for us. Drop in, let us know what you want us to talk about: spirituality, mental stuff, stress, different ways to deal with stuff. What do we bring in our life? Whatever. It's wide open. Pop it in there. Help us help you, and we will do our best to bring you that content. So guys, we love you. Have an amazing night. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.